And next up, we have Hearsay in the house, here to talk about PunkScape.
My name is, well, I go by Hearsay. I'm a lawyer and a software developer, and I'm involved with a project called PunkScape. This is not a new mint. It's a mint that came out about 7 months ago. Varian mentioned the Matrix, and it got me thinking about how to structure what to say to you guys. And I do think PunkScape is one of those rabbit hole projects. So I have a lot to try to roll through. Why you should care about PunkScape, why I care about PunkScape. But let me just start at the beginning. So 7 months ago, a guy named Jaleel who started PunkScapes. If you can see my screen, PunkScapes are these 72 by 24 pixel tall banner generative collection NFTs, or that's how they started. And the idea of the project, first of all, was an idea to kind of build on the idea of banners for NFTs. There really wasn't a generative banner collection, certainly not with more than, with a significant number prior to the existence of this project. And it started a trend. There's a series of banner projects that have come out since then. But the real concept of PunkScape, or part of the fundamental concept, is that this is an NFT that is composable. It is something that people can build on and that people have built on. Okay, so this PunkScape, for example, in its original incarnation was these 72 by 24 pixels, but we launched what's called Chapter 2 right in the scape, which turns them into these interactive landscapes. Now, this is not a GIF. I can drag and move around in this kind of virtual landscape. This was an iterative concept on the original PunkScapes. And it's part of the idea of building a world, building a metaverse around an existing NFT collection, continuing to build on it. And what can you build on top? Now it's showing me a tutorial right now, but I can type directly into it. So I can, for example, I don't know if you can see, I'm typing right onto the thing. Just as an example, let's track the Sherp. Now, one of the things about the PunkScapes is back when they minted 7 months ago, every single one had a date, a unique date in the metadata. I chose this one to show you guys because the date you can see on this one is today. It's the only one that would have today's date. They all have different dates. That was a property that we could build on. Every property of these things is stuff that we want to build on. So for example, what happens on that day? Why does that day matter? On that day, if you look at, there is a project called Gallery 27. So these are NFTs that build using the PunkScape as a base model and one a day auction. So this is an auction happening today. You can see it's counting down right now. The current bid is 0.5. And each of these pieces of art, again, banner designed, right? Each of these pieces of art is generated by software. It's using what's called a GAN to take the traits of the PunkScape, take the visuals of the PunkScape. And I have a slider here. You can see it actually starts from the PunkScape and iterates on it and creates a piece of art. Now, when it does that, it uses the person's bid message, whatever they said as they're bidding on it, to help shape the art. And at the end of the process, whoever wins this gets to choose from any of the iterations that happened. So for example, I'll use a different day just to show you some other options here. It really does varied art, but I think here's something that you'd find really cool about it. The final NFT gets minted, that person gets this Gallery 27, and 50% of the proceeds of this auction go to whoever held the PunkScape that this piece of art is based on. It's like a royalty payment. So for example, today, this owner of the original PunkScape, 5837, is going to receive at least 0.25, but there's a whole additional day left on this auction. And I can click through and see this is going to be tomorrow's auction, etc. So why do you care? I'm sure you guys are talking often about new mints and new projects, but why should you maybe care about an old mint? This is something of an old project. For one, it is very much a living project right now. We're very much about, I heard the magic word interoperability from Varian before. I think I heard Rizzle say it. I think I heard Rare Vandal say it. We're very much believers in interoperability, composability, and iterations on the concept. That's what PunkScapes is. It's also a project in which we have a music project coming out that's going to be built right into it. I can tell you the story about that. It's a project called Soundscapes that today is kind of themed around music. So that's something we can talk about. We can talk about NFP, a project that was to raise money using these NFTs to help Ukraine. It is a project that's attracting a lot of attention right now, particularly among CryptoPunk holders. I think we have 300 or 400 CryptoPunks that have Punkscape background, but also among other pixel art projects like Moonbirds and things like that. I didn't show you, for example, let's see. There's a builder tool that people are playing around with, which lets you, I can try to do one right here. Take a Punkscape, take your Punkscape, look in your wallet at NFTs. All right, so these aren't actually mine, but I'm going to use them for just showing it off. It won't let me export it though. But you can place your NFTs essentially in, add stickers to them, and create a customized banner that is yours. Now, in fact, using the tools that are built largely by community members, you can even make these animated versions of these GIFs to share on social media. I think the general idea of what we're trying to do, or one way of putting the general idea of why banners, is this premise that banners are a space that Web3 has available to conquer from Web2. You know, your banners on things like LinkedIn, banners on Twitter, banners even in Discord, Nitro, stuff like that. It's always been a very personal space. You know, your profile picture might be your professional picture, but your banner is where you show something you love. And it's a nice way to get people from other communities, people from outside of this world of NFTs that we all play in, to sort of discover the possibilities of metaverse. And it is something which, as we continue to grow on it, we think the banner can be a lot more than a ping, a lot more than a JPEG, a lot more even than an animation. It can be a space that allows a metaverse built right into the NFT. And so those were the main points I wanted to chat about, but I'd love to get some questions in and have an opportunity to. Oh, I timed it right. All right, so let me switch over to questions right at that sound.
First of all, damn, I had no idea this project was this deep, this elaborate, and that it's essentially something that many other projects are building off of. I just needed to say, like, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm going down the rabbit hole as we speak. And with that, show, hit the man with the questions, please.
Hey, Hearsay, what's going on?
How you doing, Show?
We knew it was only a matter of time before people would make the transition from seeing value in a PFP, a profile picture, and a PFB, a profile banner. It's a larger canvas that offers more room for creativity. You've also upped the ante by not only offering a means of animating your banner, but you can also incorporate your PFP into the banner itself and also make it interactive. Do you feel that this innovation will push the space out of the current feedback loop of derivative PFP projects copying copies of copies?
You know, I think it only looks like a feedback loop up close. I think we're all so close to the space that we see a million of the same things happening day after day after day. One of the things I do love about the Punkscape project that we tend to just find anything that's been done before is a reason not to do it for us. So it's really about trying to find stuff that's new and cool. But I don't think it's quite the case that we're all stuck in a feedback loop. I see, because from the outside, from the world outside of NFTs, little bits of information breaking through. It's so hard to break through to the non-NFT community to grow the space, but it's happening little by little every day. I was talking this morning about how YouTube, for example, just bought, they got a trademark on Non-Fungible Planet. And they have this series of videos about climate change that they're calling Non-Fungible Planet. I'm using that as an example because I see it as an interesting just benchmark moment of that has nothing to do with NFTs in a certain sense. And I'm not trying to promote YouTube as a platform, right? But it's interesting to see that terminology and concepts like non-fungibility that come from our space are seeping out slowly into popular culture. I've been at this sort of thing for a little bit longer than a lot of people here. I'm a bit older. I was part of the .com bubble days, and I saw it then. It's the same kind of dynamic as you saw back then. There is this experience of how people thought of web pages as billboards back then. We don't think of the internet as a series of billboards today. And it takes time for popular culture to kind of adapt and realize the possibilities. I think this experience of what can an NFT do is an ongoing challenge that every project, and certainly Punkscape, is really having a good time with pushing the answer to that question, pushing the answer to on the interoperability front, on composability, on charity, on these kinds of things. So can we get out of the loop? I don't really think we're in it. I just think it feels that way from our point of view, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we also have a question from Brookhawk. Excuse me, Brookhawk. He would like to know what platforms will allow for interactive banners. Where would these banners work?
Okay, so there's a couple of answers, right? If you look this up, for example, like if you look up an NFT on some marketplace that doesn't support interactive JavaScript canvases, things like that, you'll just see the static image. Part of what we're doing is a campaign to get other places, including Web 2 spaces, to open up their minds to more functionality, right? It's very easy to drop in additional interaction for them, and we're making it very easy for other projects to drop in this functionality now. So, for example, I believe this is the sort of thing you are going to see built into wallets. For example, they work great as wallets. There are PunkScapes, for example, that have, as a trait, that have an Ethereum logo or a Bitcoin logo. Let me find an example. Let's find a Bitcoin. So these are ones that have a Bitcoin. Here, let's watch this one. And if I, by the way, I'll lock the camera for a moment. If I type camera lock, it'll stay on its target. It's right now on the rocket. So if I stay with the rocket will launch, by the way. But the notion is, I think you're going to increasingly see more spaces open up to it, and it's an ongoing pressure. So you're asking where exactly, when. It's beyond our control directly. This is up to various services. I think Web3 services, there goes the rocket. I think Web3 services are going to be quicker to adopt than Web 2 because it's just nature of the beast. I mean, we've seen over the years how Twitter has been really dragging its feet with NFTs. I know they do verified PFPs, but like, boy, was there resistance to getting them to that point. But I think the future won't stop coming at us. It's the nature of the beast. And so these features are things that once people do launch with them who are trying to make names for themselves, and once different services add them, the bigger established players who are more reluctant to do so will eventually be pushed over the line into doing so. So I hope that's kind of a non-answer, but it is the reality. But we certainly know, we do know of projects that are busy adding it. And for those that want to have a project and want to integrate banners, chat with us. We would love to chat with you about how it works. I showed this page earlier, by the way, to show off my Twitter and GitHub and email and things like that. But this is another example of interoperability, just looking at this page. I never typed this information into this website. It is pulling this from on-chain data to know my Twitter, to know my GitHub. That might make you scared in terms of privacy. But again, this is all stuff that I chose to share. And that's kind of a Web3 ethos concept as well, where we're using the blockchain as the structure of a social network, as the structure of all kinds of future projects and concepts. I think I went way off from that question, but I had a good time.
This is so cool. Honestly, it feels like I've stumbled upon like Galapagos Island right now, and I'm just seeing like all these amazingly new exotic animals that have just been built off of like NFTs, right? It's so cool to see a project. Like I can't believe this is 7 months old. It just seems like it's so rich. There's so much here. I saw WG Meat's already like scooping up a piece. I'm going through OpenSea right now. It's really, really cool, Hearsay. And real quick, like if we were to scoop one of these, I know there's the interactive element on OpenSea. Like for Twitter though, since you have to have a still background, is there a way to capture like a scene from any of the interactive elements of a banner that you own, or like what's the best way for someone to make their Twitter banner out of a Punkscape?
Yeah, so that my answer to that question changed yesterday. We have some tools in the works to make it even easier, but just yesterday, actually, maybe it's 48 hours ago. Yesterday was sort of lost due to me celebrating a certain holiday. But there are, if you go into our Discord, if you do join PunkScapes, or if you're interested in PunkScapes and just learning, I do recommend joining our Discord. One of our team members, however, has really developed the Discord bot so that you can type PS, like exclamation point PS, record, and type the ID, and it will give you a GIF animation of a particular Punkscape. Now that actual animation, how it's taking the interactive scape and turning it into a GIF, that was done by one of our community members. And again, it's something we very much believe in. I haven't talked about our Punks University, but one of our concepts is just gather engineers. Just gather people interested in building in the space and support them and help them do whatever they want to do. and create an environment which we learn from each other and build. And we believe that everybody gets the benefit of doing that. And so a good example of that was this week when a community member made it very easy to get an animated GIF out of a Punkscape. These, as I mentioned, these aren't animated in the sense of GIFs. They don't loop. Like we're watching a fox right now, but he'll do different things just depending on let time roll by and different things will happen. So the animated GIF will just take a few seconds of watching him and get whatever it gets. But it's still very handy because, you know, there are platforms like Twitter and things like that, that GIF is kind of the most you can do for sharing at the moment. You can't do the interactive yet. Again, though, I think they're going to get pulled over the line and we just need to give them time.
And then one last question. I know Brookhock just asked this. Like, what format is Punkscape? Is it a Vox model? What is it?
Yeah. Like, it depends what you mean, right? So the chapter 1 was originally like, here's the chapter 1 of the Fox. This is just a ping, right? The chapter 2 is an interactive scape that's built in JavaScript. We use JavaScript for it partly because of the idea that we wanted to be essentially as close to the end user as we possibly could be. Like, in other words, you can build some really cool stuff in, I spent a lot of years playing around with Unity development environment, for example, and you can do really great things with those engines. But what you can't do so easily, for example, is you can't take your entire code base and post it to IPFS so that it's a decentralized version of your code that you can then pull from the Punkscape to actually run it, which is, by the way, something that the Punkscape support. Being pure JavaScript, and we did use some libraries, by the way. So it uses stuff like P5.js, but these are really some, kind of core JavaScript libraries. But essentially, there's no third-party engine other than JavaScript that is how these get rendered. JavaScript and chatting to the blockchain is how these come about.
Amazing. And if anyone else has any questions for Hearsay, tag them in the chat. But Hearsay, thank you so much for jumping up on the virtual stage and for a bunch of us for the first time introducing us to Punkscape, but hopefully not the last time. This is something that Sir Rich, I can't wait to really deep dive into it. So thank you so much, man.
No, thank you guys so much for having me on the WIP, and it's great to be here.
Oh yeah.